Welcome to Conversations. I'm Muqtadar Khan, your host, and today I want to talk to you about the D-Day, the day America is going to destroy the global economy and the global partners of Iran. This is supposed to be the most catastrophic sanctions ever imposed in human history. Never has such drastic sanctions ever been imposed on any country. And so Donald Trump is threatening, like he did in the past, I will obliterate Iran's nuclear capabilities. I will destroy Iranian civilization. And now he is talking about an economic D-Day, which will completely squeeze the Iranian economy to such an extent that it will pop like a zit. And there will go the Islamic regime of Iran. And Scott Bessent has unleashed some threats and sanctions. Apparently 60 entities will be sanctioned, some individuals, some corporations, and maybe even some countries. As of now, I have not seen the list of those 60 entities which are going to be sanctioned by the United States. Scott Bessent is calling it the economic outcast. They're going to completely isolate Iran. It will have no trade relations, no partners, because anybody who will trade with Iran will attract America's wrath. So this is the threat that Scott Bessent has made today. Just listen to him, and then we will talk a little bit more. I will also show you a rather amusing response by the Iranian foreign minister. Read this.
To enable Tehran, do not discount the cost of testing Washington's resolve. No nation should expect to enjoy the rewards of our system while helping those who seek to destroy it. It is now a time for world leaders to make a decision between prosperity and isolation, peace and terror, America and Iran. The campaign we begin today will gather force with every day that follows, and it will not end until this regime stands alone.
Well, I don't know whether the Trump administration will last that long. That is a critical question to ask. But basically, there's nothing specific. Even in the article that he wrote in the Financial Times, which was only in the digital version and apparently not in the hard copy, he just made threats. So basically, let me just explain to you what it is if you don't understand what they're trying to do. These are not sanctions on Iran. These are secondary sanctions. So these are sanctions on companies. These are sanctions on individuals. These are sanctions on countries, which, if found trading with Iran, they will have to pay. So for example, let us say that you're bartering. You're on the border of Iran. Let's say you're Afghanistan. You give Iran 10 trucks full of dried dates and dried fruits, and Iran in exchange gives you 10 tankers of gas. Okay. Now, there's no way Americans are going to find this out if this was done in the darkness, etc. But this is what Donald Trump is threatening, that if you find out that you did this, then those individuals who own those trucks, and maybe even Afghanistan itself, will be kicked out of the American dollar payment system, which is the SWIFT, which means you will not be able to do any transactions in dollars. Now, if you are a company that is, say, let's talk about in dried fruit. So you are exporting dried dates and dried apricots and other dried fruits that the Afghans export. So if you are exporting that to Europe, you're exporting that to America, and you're exporting it to China and other parts of the world, and you have this thriving business, and then you also decide to use that to barter with Iran, and then you bring in oil in, and then you sell that at a premium in Afghanistan, or you bring in hundreds of those trucks and then take them across into Pakistan and through Gwadar, send them to China or other parts of the world. So you could be doing that. But if you did that, see, it's fair trade, by the way. Okay, there's no you're not violating any international law or anything else. You're just pissing off the United States by doing that, because the whole purpose of the United States these days is to do something good for Israel today. What can we do for Israel today? And so this whole war about Iran is to make Israel safe. And so So basically, you're going to piss off the United States by doing this, which is what I have described is not illegal. But the United States said if we find out that you are exchanging oil or bartering or even buying that and paying in reals or rupees or yuan, uh, then we will make sure that all the other stuff that you send to the USA, you will not be able to export to the US. That will be blocked. Number two, we will sanction you, which means if you have money in banks in the US, they will freeze that. And number three, you will not be able to even sell stuff to Europe or to, for that matter, to UAE or to African countries if they are paying in dollars to you. So what Scott Bessent is trying to do is trying to encourage countries to de-dollarize. So one consequence of these sanctions on Iran is those countries which do want to buy Iranian oil, which is available to them at a discount, like China, which buys 80% of Iran's oil, which is 12% of its own oil consumption, and it comes at a discount. They have a whole range of what are called teapot refineries, which do nothing else except Iranian oil. So they have no fear of the United States sanctioning them. So what the US is going to do is try to physically ensure by blocking the Strait of Hormuz that oil does not reach those uh, teapot refineries in China. So there's a physical side of this, the war side of it. But that could again come via land. And so if it has to come through Central Asia, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, and then the US will say, okay, you're sending oil from Iran all the way to China. We will sanction you. You will not be able to trade with us, etc., etc. So this is what Scott Bessent is trying to do. And let me tell you, not all countries in the world are dying for Israel as the US is. Okay? As it is, the world is already sick and tired of Donald Trump and his constant bullying. So what is I think he's going to achieve is he's going to expedite de-dollarization worldwide. Donald Trump's sanctions on Iran will lead to rapid de-dollarization, I think. This is how the Iranians responded. Quite funny. You should watch, read this. So this is what Sayed Abbas Araghchi, the foreign minister, said. 14 years ago, the US said most crippling sanctions in history. 8 years ago, maximum pressure failed. This is the Trump administration, the first Trump. 5 months ago, unconditional surrender failed. This is the current Trump administration. Today, most crushing economic operation ever bound to fail. So the first comment, the 14 years ago, was Joe Biden when he was vice president under Obama. This is what they said. These are the most crippling sanctions in the history of sanctions, which eventually actually led to the JCPOA. But this is the last line is very interesting. He says, we have seen this move before. Same bull, different bullies. Oh, that is a very cute comeback from Sayed Abbas Araghchi. But let me tell you, there will be many countries which will run away. So, for example, when the Trump administration came in, the first Trump administration, and imposed similar sanctions on the world to not trade with Iran, some countries resisted and fought back, like China. Some countries tucked their tails between their legs and ran away, whimpering, scared to death, like India. India proved to be a coward. It did not stand up to Trump. Trump said, end Chabahar. They ended Chabahar. Stop buying Iranian oil. India stopped buying Iranian oil in the first round and hasn't bought any Iranian oil since, except for the small period where Trump allowed it. So when Trump says stop, India stops. When Trump says jump, India jumps. So countries like India are not going to challenge Donald Trump on this. They will follow whatever dictation comes from Washington, D.C. They may talk a lot about multipolar world and they may talk about strategic autonomy, but it's not going to happen. They're shit scared. They have abandoned Chabahar. Also, they're not going to do anything to piss off Donald Trump. But China didn't back off in the first term. China created what I said with the teapot refineries, but China also passed a domestic law which says that any country, any company that follows US or abides by US sanctions will be held accountable to by China. So if you're a Chinese company, you are in trouble. So you have to choose. Should I risk upsetting Donald Trump or should I risk upsetting my own company, especially if you're based in China? They'll come and simply pick you up and lock you up. So I think the Chinese companies are by law not going to abide by Donald Trump's sanctions. So that is where the real game is going to go on. And I think that is the only way in which Iran will survive these new sanctions from the US. But there's something else going on. Remember, the Donald Trump's administration is in deep, deep trouble. Americans are just sick and tired of the Trump administration. The American courts are sick and tired of it. Every little decision, foreign policy decision that he's making, people are throwing to such an extent. Even Wall Street Journal has rejected his foreign policy. Today, Canada is thinking of imposing sanctions on the US by cutting off supplies for electricity and petroleum. So Donald Trump's tariff policies have failed. They have not created any new manufacturing in the United States. No new manufacturing jobs have emerged. That was the purpose of this tariffs. Yes, the trade deficit has decreased a little bit. And the reason why the trade deficit has increased a little bit is because of the Iran war, and people are not buying the Russian and Iranian oil, they are buying American oil. So that is partly the only reason why the trade deficit has gone down a little bit. But it has triggered inflation. Americans are very unhappy because of the inflation, and they were not interested in this war. They voted for Donald Trump because he promised no wars, no regime change wars, America first. He abandoned all of it. He's in a war in the Middle East, a forever war that is not ending. It's a war about regime change, and it is not America first. It is Israel first, Israel last. Absolutely zero interest in America to go after. Even if Iran gets 20 nuclear weapons, that are not a problem for the US. So this whole idea that we will do this war, Americans are not buying it. And so it's going to show in a very significant way come November, which means at the minimum, the Republican Party will lose the House and Donald Trump will become a lame duck president. If he loses the House and the Senate, he might be impeached every day. In fact, he might even end up in jail. So the race is on. Who will collapse first, the Trump administration or the Iranian economy? So this is something fascinating. And I also think that he's taking on China directly. Trump was unwilling to take on China with regards to China's support for Russia in the war with Ukraine. But now he wants to take on China in the war in Iran for Israel. Can you imagine if the Chinese respond, if they impose sanctions on any Chinese company and they stop selling magnets and rare earth minerals to the United States, and the Canadians also stop doing that? Where will the US be? I have never come across such a foolish administration which talks about America first, but is just disaster first, disaster last. Yes, Iranian economy is going to suffer, no doubt about it. But I don't think that it's going to happen at the speed with which Donald Trump thinks it is going to happen. If he's able to impose similar sanctions for, say, another 5 years, then yeah, maybe it will. Anyway, so at the moment we are at this juncture. Donald Trump has failed in military means through war to achieve his goal. Not a single goal has been achieved with regards to the Iranian war. They have not destroyed Iranians' military capabilities. They have not destroyed Iran's nuclear capabilities. They have not brought about any surrender or regime change in Iran. And the Strait of Hormuz was open before the war. It is now permanently closed so far. So there is a loss, but zero gains for Donald Trump, militarily speaking. Diplomatically, nothing. Neither is the Gaza peace process working, neither is the Lebanese peace process working, nor is this peace process with Iran working. All three fail. And all because Donald Trump is not able to control Israel. I don't know why he's agreeing to terms and conditions which involve Israel and Israel compliance. The US cannot make Israel do anything, and Israel can make US do anything that it wants. It wants to get US in a war with Turkey now, and it might happen. It's quite possible that you might find me talking to you about the Memorandum of Understanding, maybe Islamabad Memorandum of Understanding about Turkey and the US in 2 months' time. I will not be surprised if the US finds itself fighting. Look, the Israelis are gone. They are not involved in this fight anymore. They started the fight and they left the US to fight. If you remember what Marco Rubio said, we didn't want to go to the war. We thought the Israelis will start and then Iran will attack us, so we have no choice. So we were dragged into this war by Israel. And Israel could drag the US into a war with Turkey. It is never in history has such a country which claims to be the world's superpower lack complete strategic autonomy with regards to its foreign policy as the US does, because American politicians take money from Israeli lobby. There's nothing else. Because American politicians are corrupt to their soul. It's absolutely fascinating for someone who studies international relations and also looks at the history of world politics. I have never seen anything like this ever in the history, that America, in its moment of unipolarity, has no strategic autonomy. Anyway, thank you for watching Conversations. Please subscribe to the channel, like this video, press the bell icon, and don't forget to share this with your socio-political network. Until next time, I'm your host, Muqtada Khan. Take care.